Holding his hat, Livius ran down the hill looking at his watch. He used a sizable pocket watch. Its chain was attached to his vest pocket. He was glad he only brought his watch with him, because it was hard to run in a suit. He was furthermore hindered by the long, dark, greyish-blue trench coat. Fires were burning at several places in the mountainside forest. They were set alight by some arsonists come. Livius fled, yet he calmly placed his legs step by step with careful precaution. He didn't seem to be running for his life. He was merely jogging on a dirt road to the small town at the foot of the mountain. He jumped over a flaming tree trunk, then stumbled to regain his balance, breaking the illusion created by the grace and dignity in his earlier movements. "I'm starting to weaken," Livius thought, glancing at the people behind him. He slowed down, pulling his watch out of his pocket. The large instrument covered his entire palm, even though Livius had a particularly large hand. He saw people in the distance, so he went further down the path, and only when his pursuers could presumably no longer see him he returned to the forest road. As he emerged from between the trees, the wind blew the hat off his head, but Livius immediately caught it in the air. "It takes away my physical strength, but at least it doesn't affect my reflexes," Livius thought. Arriving in the city, he was pleased to find that it was raining. "Maybe it'll put out the fire," he thought, as he made his way to the office. Turning a corner, he saw another thug. "How many are there?" The question erupted involuntarily as he quickly pulled into a doorway. Leaning against the wall, he looked at his watch, hiding behind the brim of his hat, trying to avoid all attention. "Is there no place I can rest?" He was annoyed. "They're setting the forest on fire to get me." "It doesn't matter. I'll leave soon anyway." Suddenly, a stranger entered the doorway and stopped in front of him. He was bald and shaved, even his eyebrows. Livius slowly raised his head, resting his previously crossed legs at the base of the wall to stand firm in case of a fight. He had been pursued for 2 months, but they had never come this close to him. The rain trickled down the person's bald head straight into the man's eyes, since there were no eyebrows or lashes. The man stood there without blinking as the water droplets ran down his eyeballs. His face showed no emotion, but the heavy breathing made him look angry. However, Livius did not take this as a warning sign. He had long observed that these people were always panting. Livius didn't dare walk past the man, so he continued to lean against the wall with his usual negligence as he slid the watch back into his vest pocket. In the woods, they might have been at each other's throat at this point, but in the city they both restrained themselves. The prowler stood mute for a number of seconds, staring straight into Livius's face, who stared back with questioningly raised eyebrows, as if he wanted to boast with their existence. The stranger's pale, translucent skin was discolored from something, shining a bluish tinge from behind. "How long do you have to stay here in this city to count as a person who lives here?" the bald man asked, but Livius didn't answer. He mustered up the courage to gently push the man aside and stepped out of the doorway. The man turned and reached to grab him, but couldn't find Livius anywhere. Livius entered the waiting room of the pharmacy, shaking the water off his umbrella. It was almost time to close. There was only an elderly lady sitting in the waiting room. Livius took a seat in the opposite corner. The lady stopped knitting. They started mingling softly about the fresh news of the forest fire. Before queuing into the office, the woman asked Livius, a regular guest, about the doctor, as the former doctor had been forced to stop practicing for reasons related to his health a few months earlier. The place evoked contradicting emotions in Livius. He could barely wait to begrudgingly enter the door. His heart was filled with happiness at the sight of the young physician. This lady was the only reason he went back and lived in that city. His delight, however, was not perfect. He would have liked to meet her anywhere else except in the office.
You'd never guess it.
"Already?" she asked, then turned to her assistant. "Would you mind leaving for a minute?" The assistant sighed, put down the sealer, and obediently walked out of the room. "I won't give you anything," the doctor said sternly. "It's needed," Livius murmured. "Needed? What does that supposed to mean?" The doctor lowered her voice into a whisper. "This much? It's not normal. What do you want it for?" The doctor lowered her voice into a whisper. "Please, Anna. This is the last time. There's not much—" Livius bit the sentence. "Time left?" the doctor asked. "What are you up to?" "Nothing." Livius tried to reassure Anna, but he didn't want to lie. "It's for personal use only. Okay? I'll inject it myself then." "No." Livius shook his head firmly. "You know that's not possible." "Yes, it absolutely is. You just don't want it. And you're not even willing to say why." Anna was already shouting. The assistant heard everything perfectly from outside. This was not the first time she had witnessed a similar debate. "Please understand this. I can't tell you why. I really cannot." Livius shook his head, bending over. His feelings tortured him, but he hardened his face. Anna saw honesty in his eyes. The man was begging in complete humiliation for the medicine. This was unusual. Anna sighed heavily. To her heart, she would not have prescribed any more drugs, but in the end she gave in to him again. She was well taught not to listen to her heart. "You're destroying yourself," she said as she signed a receipt. At the pharmacy, the signature was studied for a long time. Then the apothecary searched for another prescription, compared the signature, and then dispensed the substance with a frown. "I didn't ask her out," Livius thought as he walked home. "I couldn't have anyway. We just got into a fight is all was happening. Next time I meet her, I'll definitely call her for a walk." He heard knocking of high heels. He smiled. "Good thing I have an umbrella," he thought, and turned back to run and save the doctor from as much rain as possible. "Thank you," Anna said. The rain poured so much that Anna got drenched under a minute. Livius felt a little sad seeing how breathtakingly beautiful she was. Anna smiled at him. Livius's heart was pounding. Every drop of rain is lucky to have touched her hair. Anna put her arm in his. They walked like that for a minute. They didn't talk. Livius thought the woman would tell him if they were going in the wrong direction, because she didn't seem to be heading home. He knew where Anna lived, but he never went inside, only accompanied her to the gate once. The age difference is the reason, Livius thought, and he wasn't far off. Although it didn't altogether prevent her from liking him, the young and energetic woman was significantly influenced by the fact that the man was more than 10 years older than her. "Where are we going?" Livius finally asked, for Anna's home was in the opposite direction from the doctor's office. "Could you help me?" Anna asked the man, turning to him with such a sincere look that Livius would have thrown away anything else to please her. Of course he tried to hide these emotions. "With what?" Anna wondered how she could explain. "There's a guy who comes in the office all the time. I mean a different one besides you." Livius almost hissed from the pain entering his soul. "I'm gonna meet him? At first I thought he was a hypochondriac. It seemed like he really needed medical advice. But then I began to suspect something else, so I promised to meet him and discuss it." Same thing will happen to me, Livius thought, but he knew he had to try one day. "I can understand him," he finally said, and Anna waved him off with a smile. He might want something, Anna said, but he might be just actually worried about his health. Neither of them thought the latter was a reasonable explanation. Would you mind coming that way, if the rain isn't so bad? And if there's a problem, I'll pretend you're a good old friend of mine and invite you to converse. Livius nodded with his characteristic sad smile. It hurt him that she would only pretend they were friends. We are wounded most easily by the ones dearest to us. As uncommon as it is for women, she didn't really have friends, so she could only pretend it with anyone else. Are you going there now, to meet him? Yes, Anna nodded. Would you hold this for a while? He handed over the umbrella. She supportively took it. Livius lagged behind, but did not say goodbye. Anna shook her head in confusion, then ran back and covered Livius with the umbrella. Go on, I'm dressed for rain, he smiled. No way, it's yours. It's my fault I didn't bring one. Anna tried to press the umbrella in his hand. Livius protested by putting his hands in his pockets. Anna blew a big breath out of her nose, secretly praising the man's generosity and quick thinking. We agreed to talk at the fountain by the shore. We'll separate at the park, she said. So they walked for some time, chattering. After that, Livius started keeping a distance between him and the girl. His hat and long jacket were completely waterproof, so all he had to do was to button up his coat and lower his head a bit more. But that time he didn't lower his head. He was watching the woman from a distance, admiring her. Anna deftly dodged the puddles, treading towards the meeting place. The game became more and more difficult as the pavement began to turn into a river. The drains were so full that water flowed out from under the manhole covers like milk forgotten on the stove. A passing car flooded Livius with muddy liquid. Striding forward, Livius tried to warn Anna, who turned to the man just as the car had splashed her. The man held his head devastated, but Anna just laughed. She was used to bad weather and filth. People were heading out from the park on their way home. Anna, after some searching, noticed a tall, handsome man under an umbrella. He was about to leave. She called out to him. They started talking. She went past him to face towards her distant follower. Livius was glad that they managed to leave the tension behind, even if only for a few minutes. As the road to the mountain where he lived led through the park, he went straight on, slowly catching up with the couple. From a distance, the two of them seemed to be having a cheerful conversation, but as Livius approached, Anna began to stand nervously from one leg to the other as she glared at him. Livius lengthened his steps so he could get her out of her predicament as soon as possible. Anna also took a few steps toward him when she saw him. Thank you, Livius said, wiping his nose. I'm sorry to intrude under your umbrella and all, but this weather... He paused, like he just noticed the other man talking, whom Anna interrupted. No, unfortunately this is a... I apologize. Am I disturbing you? Livius pointed to the two of them. No, Anna hurried with an answer, pretending to be tense. I don't know, Anna muttered, staring shyly at the ground, but then composed herself. So, I don't want to waste your time and cause unnecessary pain. It might hurt to hear this, but I think it's better if you know it. Please do not contact me in the future unless you need medical advice. I see, he said, but it would have been worse to regret that I never tried. He nodded as he looked at Livius with a sad smile, which was quite as if he had learned it from him. Then he headed home without a single word. Livius knew what the man must have been feeling. They headed in the opposite direction, towards the forest. For politeness' sake, they could not go after the man. Livius thought it would be better to go to his place, because the woman's apartment was far more distant than the lighthouse where he lived. But he didn't dare to come up with the idea. He didn't feel like smiling as sadly as the other men did. Rather, he looked back to see when they were far away enough for the men not to see them when they turned around. Anna held his arm. "It's pouring. Would you like to come in? It's not that far." Almost against his will, the words slipped out. Livius could have continued this sentence, but he didn't finish because Anna nodded enthusiastically and snuggled up to him tightly. Livius did not dare take this as a sign of the woman's affection for him, for Anna's mouth was blue and she was shaking from the cold. The firefighters and the pouring rain did a good job. Only a mixture of smoke and mist rose from the forest. No flames could be seen. The firefighters wanted to send them back, but when Livius said he lived on the top of the hill, in the tower, they backed away and the couple continued to scale towards the hilltop in the storm. The umbrella turned inside out. Somehow, as if that signaled when the pouring rain had turned into a real tempest. From then on, the journey home turned into a survival tool. Livius let go of the umbrella. It became completely useless anyway. The wind stirred the water droplets like a hurricane, lifting up the surface of the puddles as well, carrying them almost horizontally. The wind blew off his hat. Livius did not reach for it. He was much too preoccupied with the woman's safety. Supporting each other, they stumbled toward the mountain. The road became more and more exhausting. The high heels of Anna's shoes often sunk entirely into the ground that was softened by the freshly formed streams trickling down the mountain path. Livius was barely able to keep catching the constantly stumbling woman. Anna got fed up. She kicked off her shoes and started running forward barefoot. "I'll freeze if I don't move," she shouted, laughing. Her spirit was infectious. "I'm sorry, but I'm grateful for the rain. It saved my home from burning down." "I thought you lived in the tower," Anna shouted back. "When you said we better go to your place, did you mean we were going to spend the night in the woods?" she teased. "Wow, I didn't know you wanted to spend the night with me," Livius snapped back. "Yeah, you can wait for that to happen, creep," Anna laughed and started running again. Livius followed. "I don't have the time." He already regretted saying this as he spoke. "You'll never catch up," Anna shouted back, but after a few meters she slipped and fell on her stomach in the middle of a newly formed pool, which was accompanied by a dying scream. Livius burst out in laughter. He ran quickly to help. Anna hurriedly reassured him that everything was fine. Livius lifted her. He put his arm around her and spread one half of his coat over her. Anna snuggled under the garment. They struggled towards the lighthouse together. It was a wonderful feeling for the man to gain her trust, and to feel her fragile, trembling body near him and to help her. They walked in silence for a short time. Livius thought he could hear a soft violin solo echoing from across the river that ran beside the mountain. Of course, this was impossible, as the percussion of the storm completely suppressed any sound of the theater potentially filtering through from the other side. It felt like the raindrops slamming into their faces could cut the skin, and the coat, even though heavily soaked with water, flapped clapping behind them with the furious gusts of wind. Livius looked forward, protecting his eyes with his left hand, but he couldn't see much through the curtain of rain. However, he recognized the tree nearby, so he knew the lighthouse was not far away. "Look!" Anna said, but Livius could not hear her voice from the roaring storm. Anna tapped Livius's chest to draw attention to herself, then pointed forward. Touching the muscles, an appreciative thought ran through her mind. "Look, there's someone there," she continued. Livius, with his gaze following the outstretched finger, saw a man in a hat running across the road in a dark-colored trench coat. "I'm creating fashion. If he knocks, we'll let him in, he shouted back, laughing as he looked at his watch. Anna, getting where the man had been seen, noticed a dark stain which could have been blood. She memorized the phenomenon well. The wind almost knocked them off their feet one more time, but they eventually reached the tower and, holding on to the handrails, climbed up the stairs to the door. The mood changed as soon as they entered the lighthouse building. They were greeted with silence and warmth, plus a pleasant blend of pine and floral scents. The thick, solid stone walls and heavy wooden door kindly kept out the sounds of the storm. The windows were tiny and well insulated. Livius had just lit the fireplace when he began to flee at the sight of the burning forest. The thickest logs were still flickering. He remembered why he was running. In the afternoon, he was still afraid of being caught and interrogated, but the woman's company pushed such worries out of his head. He rolled a thick log into the embers and tossed some thin branches next to it to ignite the fire quickly. He squelched for the hanger in his soaked shoes. He set it by the fireplace, hung his coat on it, kicked off his shoes, entered the bathroom from the living room, opened the water, then began to unceremoniously throw away his wet clothes with the carelessness of being home. And only then did he realize that Anna was still waiting at the door nervously. "Well, come on in," he invited her in surprise. Anna looked around the room. She hadn't been there yet. She was surprised at how tastefully Livius arranged the furniture in the lighthouse, which looked almost like a ruin on the outside. The room was fitted with strip floor of oak and a thick, soft rug that pleasantly caressed Anna's bare feet. With the exception of the fireplace, almost everything was made of wood, and green plants made the place even more homey. She also noticed many medieval objects that decorated the room as antiques. Opposite the fireplace, the slightly curved walls of the round building warmly embraced the curved-backed sofa. The pillows on it seemed invitingly soft. In the middle of the room was a small table with a beautiful bouquet of freesia in pottery. "Freesia is my favorite," Anna said, a little emotionally. "I know," Livius thought, but instead he said, "I filled the tub for you. I think a hot bath would come handy." In the meantime, he realized again that he wasn't alone, so he buttoned up his shirt rather than taking it off. Stepping to the closet, he took out the first dry clothes that got in his hand and handed them to Anna. "Thank you," Anna said gratefully, and headed for the bathroom, but turned back from the door. "You know, my father had a water mill. When he died, I inherited it. I never went there, but imagined something like this." Livius just smiled, and that smile somehow made Anna self-conscious, which she hated terribly, so she quickly locked herself in the bathroom. Livius changed, wringed his clothes out, then took a dryer and hanged his clothes next to the fireplace. He leaned down on the couch for a few seconds, then turned on music and set out to make dinner. He found onions, eggs, a sort of ham and cheese, so he decided to make hearty scrambled eggs. He served the meal evenly halved, with tomatoes and fresh bread. Meanwhile, Anna stuck her head out of the door, asked for a towel, and then, when Livius handed it over, asked if she could use the washing machine. Anna came to the living room wearing Livius's clothes, with a towel turban on her head. "Take a seat," Livius invited her to the table. He only had one chair, which showed his loneliness more than anything. He offered the one chair to Anna and pulled the low couch forward for himself. He felt like a child with the table reaching up to his collarbone, but it was still better than eating while standing. "It doesn't look like the storm is easing," Anna said anxiously as she took her seat in the chair. Livius did not answer for a long time. He felt tense, unable to decide why Anna said this and what the appropriate response would be. "I'm sorry I instigated a fight in the office." "No problem," Livius said, filling both cheeks with scrambled eggs in embarrassment. Anna also started eating. She was hungry, she hadn't eaten since noon. For a while they both focused their attention on nutrition. Anna looked up with curiosity in her eyes. "Show me your neck." She got up, walked around the couch and stood behind Livius, then gently tilted the man's head to take a look at the needle marks. Anna sighed deeply, worried about the man. "Why would you do this to yourself?" she asked with sincere incomprehension, gently stroking the worn skin with her hand. Livius refrained from making any comment. He enjoyed the woman's touch, yet he pulled his neck away. "Something is not right about you," he told Anna eventually. "What's not right is that I care about someone as distant and cold as you," Anna said, feeling a little offended. "Forgive me. I'm glad you care," Livius replied. His voice created a tingling in Anna's back. She really liked it when the man used such a pitch. She reconciled in an instant, loving the honesty. She put her arm around his neck from behind. Their faces touched. Livius gently took the woman's hand. They stayed that way for a few seconds while Livius stared out the window. "It's still raining." Anna sighed and took the towel off her head. "Would it be a big deal if I stayed for the night?" Livius laughed, reaching back and pulling the girl over the backrest of the couch. Anna ended up on Livius's lap after a surprised exclaim. The man embraced her, only a hair's breadth away from kissing her. Anna wouldn't have minded. "I'll get you some pajamas," Livius said, phlegmatically leaving her. The lack of light concealed the pain on her face, shrouded the suffering soul grinded between elemental emotions and rock-solid will. Perhaps loneliness can hurt the most when we are near our loved ones. Anna listened to the slow, steady breathing from the left. If she were at home when she felt such loneliness, she would have been hugging the pillow for comfort. But there and then, she had to be tough. It was a requirement, and that was what she expected of herself. She was still reliving the minutes when she was just lying on the couch, blinking in shock as Livius composedly stepped toward the closet. For the next hour or so, she acted like a sleepwalker. Livius changed bedding for Anna and made the couch for himself. He did all this with such impassioned monotony that the woman could feel the anger rising in her. She was furious that the man refused to acknowledge the affection he felt for her. Later, they heard some huge rumble. Livius went out to see what had happened. It turned out that the storm had taken down the roof of the tower. He said they can't do anything about it at the moment, so they kept preparing to go to bed. Anna suggested that they at least try to spread some canvas to avoid water damage, but Livius just waved aside the idea, stating there was nothing important up there. Anna hanged her washed clothes, then wished him good night, and Livius turned off the lamp. Anna could hardly believe this was how the day would end. For a while she wanted to hear Livius climb down from his couch and lie next to her. Despite all this, she heard nothing but the breathing of the man who soon fell asleep. Oh, why do I keep thinking about this nonsense? I don't even care about that man. I'm only here because I didn't want to catch a cold in the rain while I was going home. Anna sighed. It wasn't the only reason, actually, but she tried to avoid thinking about the other reason. Okay, sometimes he can be cute, but he's really just an unfortunate drug addict. If someone asked, she would have said she didn't have any feelings for the man. Annoyed by her inability to ignore the events, she slowly fell asleep, secretly hoping to wake up feeling Livius caressing her. She woke up early, by herself. She climbed out of bed, making no noise, and picked up her dried clothes. What's next? She thought. She would have preferred to silently leave and forget the whole business, but she couldn't. "We can't talk privately in the office anyway. I'll show you why I need the injections." Livius did not greet her. After the awkward situation of the previous day, such formalities seemed unnecessary. He looked straight at her and gave the information. Anna looked back, eyes wide open. He handed her a small metal box in which Anna saw the ampoules prescribed the day before, in addition to plenty of other medicine and pills. Then he led her by the hand to the door at the end of the living room. The door opened to a steep staircase. They began to climb. There were no railings. The stairs spiraling upwards and around were made of the same stone as the wall of the lighthouse. The morning light filtering through the tiny window illuminated the grains of dust swirling slowly in the air, and somehow everything in the dimly lit staircase looked pale white. Anna looked around in amazement, feeling like she had been dropped into a fairy tale. Everything was covered with cobwebs, except the stairs, from which it seemed to be regularly used. Bats did not live there. The place was closed off from the outside world. As if invented to make things easier, as they went uphill, the stairs became less and less steep. Towards the end, if she had released Livius's hand, she would have reached the stone above them with her arm outstretched, while carrying the box with the other. But she didn't want to let go of Livius's hand. She stayed by the wall, a little afraid of the height rising in direct proportion of her fatigue. "He trusts me," Anna thought. She could have pushed the man into the abyss with a single move. Indeed, Livius went on the outside at the edge of the stairs, but the primary reason for this was not trust, but security. "Close your eyes," Livius asked. "Excuse me?" Anna asked in horror. They were on the last section of the stairs. There were 10 meters left. From then on the steps were missing, with only holes in the wall reminiscent of broken teeth. The stairs disappeared from there, though they were a good 4 meters apart from the ceiling. Anna stopped. Looking up, she saw no openings in the ceiling, no trapdoor, not even a ledge. She didn't know what Livius was up to, but as she looked down at the stairs leading into nothingness, she didn't find the place suitable for much other than suicide. "Just close your eyes, I'll handle the rest," her companion encouraged, with little to no success. "I hope we won't die." The sentence seemed less of a joke than she would have wanted it to. "And I thought he had to trust me," she thought as she closed her eyes. Livius put his arm around her shoulder. They continued on the stairs. It was terrifying not knowing how much was left when they would reach the end of the stairs. Anna's legs didn't want to obey. Every step had to be taken with utmost difficulty. Anna screamed in mortal terror as they began to fall. Her heart probably stopped for a moment as the ground disappeared from under her feet. She always felt Livius was a little weird. She knew he was hiding something. All her doubts flashed before her eyes, yet she instinctively clung to the man in her terrible fear. During the fall, she thought the walls belonged to a church for some reason. They fell on the flight of the stairs below them. Leaning forward, Livius pushed the wavering girl toward the wall. Anna proved a surprisingly strong presence of mind by not dropping the box. "I told you not to open your eyes," Livius scolded. "What do you mean you told—" Anna shouted indignantly, but suddenly fell silent. Maybe just because of the shock, but she really couldn't decide which one happened first. That she opened her eyes because she had started to fall, or they fell because she opened her eyes. "No, one more time," Anna said in a strong voice. "I want to know what this is all about." "Fine," Livius agreed, a little surprised at the stubbornness in her voice. Anna shut her eyes tight, and Livius began to lead. Anna did not know how much was left. She closed her eyes too soon. She could not tell when the flight of stairs would end, but she didn't dare open them any more, lest she cause trouble again. Her steps became more and more uncertain, but Livius pushed her forward firmly. It was as if she had heard quiet footsteps. She felt the end of the stairs get closer and closer, but she stepped forward resolutely, playing along with the man. "It's very close, it's so very close, we're going to fall." She was already panicking deep inside, but she let herself be driven because the man held her steady. "We arrived. You can open your eyes now." The roof was taken down by the storm, leaving only the waist-high wall plate on the top of the tower. Judging from the ruins, a special mixture of workshop and laboratory could have been furnished in the attic. Test tubes, tweezers, drafting compass, lab centrifuge, ropes, sterilization equipment, and plenty of other instruments which Anna could not tell what they were. All this lay scattered on the floor among the furniture, much of it shattered and soaked. Further back, under a couple of beams on the floor, Anna noticed a wooden door leading down. She placed the metal box clutched in her hand on an overturned but intact lathe, then stepped to the edge of the roof, leaning against the stone, her hair sometimes fluttered by the wind. She looked around pensively. The sky was clear, but at the center of a distant clearing, a tree of refuge torn out from the ground reminded her of the storm raging the day before. Livius put away his pocket watch. He did not care about the landscape or the condition of his study. He admired the beauty of the woman. He couldn't get enough of the lady's kind features. "How did we get here?" Anna asked. The situation was so impossible that she couldn't even be surprised. "Stay here and I'll show you. I will be as honest as possible." "Where are you going?" Anna frowned. "Wait here. I'll be back in a minute and I'll show you the basis of the rumors." "What? No, I won't wait here. I'm going with you. I didn't have a near-death experience to still stay here and keep wandering. You said you'd be honest." "I said as much as I could." "You can't exclude me from your life even after all this. I want to know what you do and why you keep using dangerous drugs." Stepping next to the table, she randomly took a large tablet out of the box. "Is this one important here, for example? Does it matter if I drop it from here now?" she asked, leaning out and dropping the pill. Her lips trembled, her voice broke as she held back the tears. "How could I explain how important you are to me? If I were so important to you, you should accept the fact that there are things that I can't tell you." Livius became upset. "You can't come with me. You'll stay put here and wait until I get back. It won't take long." "I'm going with you. I'm going after you and that's it." "No, wait here." Livius pointed to the floor, then walked back. Anna followed. "I asked you to stay," Livius said. His voice became menacing. "And what if I don't stay? Are you going to—" Livius picked up a rope from the rubble, grabbed Anna, and methodically tied her. She tried to fight back, but Livius was stronger. Anna was deeply shocked by the cruelty in him. "One of two things will happen," Livius said, as he stood towering over the woman on the floor. "I'm going to untie you, and then I'll take you back and let you go. Or you stay here and wait until I come back, then I'll let you go and tell you what I can." No matter how she writhed or wiggled, Anna could not escape. She soon realized this, so she didn't waste her strength. "Do it then. Show me," nodded Anna. Livius set off to the far side of the tower, raised the trapdoor there, and went down. Anna, with great difficulty, dug out a tiny, knurled-edged knife from her pocket, and she began to cut through the rope. "I don't care. I'll find out what he's been doing," she said to herself in a throaty voice, boiling with rage. "He tied me up. That man is mentally ill, but he messed with the wrong person." Livius came out through the trapdoor, but he couldn't find Anna where he had left her. He looked around to see where she went. She could have been hiding among the furniture. Then he heard a clap and tripped on the stone floor. He pressed his hand on his side. He wanted to get up, but Anna hit him, kicked him, then pushed him to the ground. Livius still got up and tried to restrain the woman, but he was no longer able to. The nausea caused by the drugs and the gunshot wound had taken away his strength. He realized that the woman had learned to fight, Her movements didn't consist of girly flailing. She fought as a trained soldier. Anna won the duel. Livius slipped on the spilled blood on the floor. The bullet hit the left side of his belly. Anna could have easily killed even with the tiny and easy-to-hide firearm, but she didn't want to inflict a fatal wound. Livius stood up once more, not caring about the weapon pointing at him. He leaned against the wall, standing on his right leg, crossing his left leg over it. He took out his pocket watch, his eyes lingering on it. This time he actually heard the sound of violins filtering through from the rehearsal in the opera house. Blood leaked from beneath his fingers, and gradually the pain arrived. Anna grabbed the gun, pulled her tangled hair away from her face, and said in a demanding voice, "You're gonna tell me everything." "You're a spy, aren't you?" "I am," Anna nodded. "I always suspected something was wrong with you, even before Livius shook his head. "That's why you are so interested in my work. How could you keep it a secret for so long? All this time?" Anna became a little bit puzzled. "It's not like we've known each other for years or anything," she thought. "Now you tell me everything from top to bottom." Livius shook his head with a contemptuous laugh. "I'm not gonna tell you everything. I'll tell you what I would have told you anyway." He wasn't scared. Anna already regretted shooting him. The pistol was shaking in her hand. From the beginning, her assignment was to find out what Livius was dealing with. It was no accident that the city doctor was replaced. Everyone knew Livius was a strange man. All sorts of gossip circulated about him among the people. The organization that sent Anna suspected that the man had made a groundbreaking discovery. They wanted to uncover the secret. And that's why Anna hated so much that she fell in love with Livius. Her job would have been to seduce him and find out his secret. Instead, she fell for him. Of course, she didn't want to admit it to herself, so she stubbornly insisted on the idea of keeping in touch with him solely to accomplish her mission. But in that moment, with the gun in her hand, she realized she would be unable to kill him. Her heart was already wrenched from knowing that she had shot him. Livius was right. Anna didn't have the will to make him confess his secret by torture. She backed away from the man and went to the trapdoor. A large iron ring joined to it with 4 rivets so it could be lifted. She kept an eye on Livius, but her finger wasn't on the trigger. She stretched it out, pressing it to the side of the barrel. What if there's nothing below but the stairs? Anna thought. No, he wouldn't have forbidden me to come here then. It has to be something important, she concluded. She crouched down to lift the door. She didn't in the end. She thought, who cares? Leaving the trapdoor, she turned to Livius again. It turns out, when push comes to shove, you mean more to me than my mission. She went back to her love. I'm sorry, I went too far. Don't resent me. I'm sorry, she said. She had no idea what else she could say after all this. I will survive, Livius replied. And thank you, he said, nodding towards the trapdoor. Needless to say, Anna knew he was thankful, for she had shown him that she really loved him. Livius put the watch away, then examined his wound through the hole in his vest. I should get a doctor's appointment, he said with all seriousness, then looked at Anna with a frantic grin, then erupted in laughter, which almost turned into a sob. Anna squatted next to the man, instructed him to lie down. She pulled up his vest and shirt, glancing at the wound. She hit him exactly where she aimed, just below the ribs. Looking around, she saw a soaked rag on the floor, but she immediately dismissed the idea, tearing a strip from her blouse. Livius pointed to a first aid box. Anna mechanically followed the instructions she had done countless times. We need to call for help. You need proper treatment, she shuddered. After a few minutes, the bleeding seemed to subside. Anna dug into her hair. She usually laughed carefree when a difficult, complicated situation was resolved, but this time it was different. Beside the wounded man, it became only a faint, uncertain smile. But Livius forgot all his worries from that smile. Anna, urged by her learned instincts, stood up and looked around. "Boots on the ground. We need to get out of here," she said. Livius's smile disappeared. "What's the matter?" "The reinforcements are coming," Anna said. "One of them found me yesterday," Livius recalled as he stood up. On the forest road, indeed, a group approached. Its members found a hat and a pair of high heels on the way, which they collected as evidence. 7 people. They hid their weapons, but it was obvious they were not hiking. Livius looked at his watch, then pulled out a revolver from one of the drawers. He no longer cared about closing eyes, grabbed Anna's hand and started leading her. As she turned, Anna saw a staircase leading under the slab, on which 4 or 5 Liviuses went up and down. Out of nowhere they came up the stairs. The people going down slowly disappeared. They strode firm, but without any haste. Meanwhile, the particular Livius with whom she set out held her hand all the way. Anna was so surprised that she didn't even realize what was happening. She let Livius lead her down the stairs. She looked back after a few meters, but saw only the missing steps behind them. "What's happening?" Anna asked. "Agents are coming," Livius replied. Anna felt like the man deliberately misunderstood the question, but decided to let him have his way. "They were sent by the same people who sent me. They helped me with their threatening presence. The harder things are, the more you desire female attention, the more you need a partner," she explained. "You're expected to be more open to me if you need help. I think they knew you wouldn't spill anything if they tried to force you to," she added, trying to flatter him. "Then why are they coming here now?" Livius asked. "Wouldn't it make more sense for them to wait, to let you get my secrets out of me?" Anna thought of her superiors and everything she had seen from them before. "The agency may know me better than I do. They might have had a plan B," she said. She didn't talk about the mortifying realization that this might have been plan A all along. They knew they could break me, she thought. Livius frowned, watching Anna's painful expression. "Do they want to threaten me with hurting you?" Livius concluded confidingly. "I won't let that happen." He took his hand off the wound and buttoned up his coat. The material was waterproof. He knew, unless his blood drips to the ground, they wouldn't notice his wounds. They went further down the stairs. Anna anxiously tried to dissuade Livius from going through the door, as the pursuers might have been standing right in front of it. She suggested they hide and try to sneak out as the brigade searches the room with the stairs. Livius plainly rejected the idea. They crossed the room and stood in front of the tower entrance. "Where did they go?" Anna asked in surprise, as she didn't see anybody approaching on the outside. "They're not here yet," Livius said weakly, and looked up, took a few steps and caught something falling from the air. Anna looked up too, but didn't see where the object came from. Looking back, she saw that Livius was offering something on his open palm. It was a tablet. She didn't take it, just watched the medicine with an open mouth. Livius started to walk towards her, but after 2 steps he disappeared, and after a few seconds he spoke behind the girl. "I'm here." Anna turned around and walked over to the man, touched him. His coat was wet, drops of water on his face, making the man's appearance look even more unusual in the sunny weather. "The man with the hat," she recognized. "You were the man in the rain yesterday." Anna stood in shock. Livius nodded as he took out his watch and began to inspect it, handing the tablet to her with his other hand. "You can travel through time," Anna said, slowly reaching for the pill. She recognized it right away, because even when she dropped it, it reminded her of a chubby beetle. "Yes," answered Livius. "If we leave now, by the time the agents get here, they won't find anyone in the lighthouse." Instead of the road, they followed a narrow path through the woods. "Do you need all these substances for time travel?" "Yes. For longer, stable journeys, the body needs to be put in a certain condition. Speaking of travel, you should take the pill." Anna swallowed the medicine without a word. "Those were real," she recalled. "A lot of stuff in your apartment. The antiques are all real, right?" "They are," Livius admitted. "Why did I have to close my eyes?" It's much easier to maintain a manifestation in the past if the subject's consciousness does not object to what's happening. This is partly why medicine is needed. The medicines, Anna said, holding her head in disbelief. The significance of the discovery made her understand a little better why the man was willing to make such sacrifices. Still, she disagreed. Have you ever considered what price you're paying for it? Even then, Anna didn't understand how Livius could ruin himself like that. I mean, these aren't really medicines, just poison under a different name. Do you know what side effects only the drugs I prescribe have? If you go on like this, you will kill yourself in a few years. This isn't a game, you know. I'm talking about death. Livius laughed sadly and shook his head. You don't understand, he said. Precisely, I don't understand, and neither do you. Don't do this anymore. I cannot comprehend how you can be so irresponsible. I understand, you made an invention unparalleled, but if you think about the future, it can't go on like this. Or you just travel there to see what you're missing while you're dead when you could have been alive? Soon there will be no one to complete the study. She tried to convince him every possible way. If I'm actually important to you, you can't do this anymore. If not for yourself, at least do it for me. She was increasingly overwhelmed by despair. Please, it's not too late. Maybe there's no permanent damage yet. I don't want you to die because of some stupid research. Livius shook his head, not answering. Don't go to the past anymore. Stay here with me, said Anna. I'm here for you now. Her eyes were already glistening with tears. Livius grabbed her shoulder, looked deep into her eyes. Anna was silent as she saw the tears in his eyes. Don't you still understand? Livius asked. This is the past. No, I'm in the past here, Livius emphasized. Anna didn't want to believe her ears. She couldn't help but hug the man, hugged him tightly. She buried her face into the wet coat, inhaling its scent. No, 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 she repeated. She felt like with this man, the thing that always seemed impossible might happen. Above all, she longed for a relationship with him. But Livius's words meant that he could only stay there if he continued to torture himself with the drugs. She didn't want that. Livius returned the hug. They stayed that way for a long time. Anna sobbed. Livius comforted her. It was then when the immeasurable tension came out of her, which had been shoveled into an ever-increasing pile for weeks by the depressing circumstances. Livius stood rocking his sweetheart. He let her cry. When Anna only sniffled occasionally, Livius looked at her face for one last time, wiped away her tears, kissed her on the forehead, then took out his chunky pocket watch and disappeared from sight. Anna started running, even though she felt like she had lost all her strength along with her will to live. She ran down the hill. She lost her balance several times, but the thick blanket of fallen leaves cushioned the fall. She wanted to run out of the world, leaving the whole universe behind. She thought of her inheritance, the watermill in a distant country. No one knew about that place, not even Anna for a long time. She had long planned that if sometime she had to disappear, she would look for that watermill. That day has arrived, the same day she found and lost her true love. Crying, she ran through the city out of breath. She had good stamina because of her training, yet the sweat trickled down on her back by the time she got home. She tossed some clothes into her suitcase, took money, wiping her tears. She estimated the effect of the drug would last for a few hours, from which she tried to deduce when she would return to the original present. I have a 20-minute advantage over the agency, she thought. How does it all work? She tried to systemize her ideas. When I get back from the past, I'll stay where I was, right? She tried to divert her attention from the pain with important and urgent matters. Yeah, Livius also moved behind my back in the rain and appeared there. Livius. She slammed the travel bag, then walked out the door. She hired a hansom cab, asked for a ride to the port. Arranging the journey was not a difficult task. There were trips to all parts of the world, departing from the big city across the river. She bought a ticket at the port and sat down in the waiting room. She had to wait 3 hours to leave, which in her present state seemed like eternity itself. At first she tried to divert her attention, but she wasn't interested in anything. In desperation, she finally set out to talk to people who were also waiting. She felt like she would go mad if she didn't get help. The men present were happy to talk to the extremely pretty lady, but Anna was unable to pay attention to them, impatiently leaving everyone. In her desperation, she even tried to count, only to not have to think about Livius and the insane days behind them. But she had to realize that this was not going to get her together. She began to think through everything from the top, from the day she arrived in the city. As she took the events in turn, one after the other, they started to make sense. The unfazed attitude with which Livius was able to handle even the most dangerous situations, and the quiet confidence that was emanating from him. The tiny telltale utterances that caught her attention but never betrayed enough to let the whole picture be put together. How she always felt that the man knew more than he should have. I understand now. He played with time all along. We went up to the tower by going back to a time when the stairs were still intact. Then when we came back we were already on the roof. It's obvious. He asked me to close my eyes to avoid me seeing the many Liviuses going up and down. He must have went back to the same time many times. That's why the stairs were full of him in the past. In the last few minutes of conversation, she had learned more about the mystery surrounding Livius than ever before. While they were getting to know each other, they practically took turns to yell at and become smitten with each other over and over again. Anna was able to separate things very well in hindsight. Almost every quarrel could be traced back to her work, either to espionage or being a medical doctor. She shouted at Livius either because he was solicitous not to tell too much about what he was working with, which made Anna increasingly realize what a hopeless mission she had been given, or they quarreled because Anna saw how pernicious the drugs he was using were. She was afraid the man's body was going to give in, which bothered her because she started to like him more and more during the time they didn't spend screaming, but this also bothered her because she knew she shouldn't have liked him. In the meantime, of course, there was a resurgence of sweet memories, during which Anna almost started to cry in the waiting room. Trying to calm down, she covered her face. In one such attempt, she looked at her watch as she had done many times during the tedious wait. This time, however, she was horrified to see how much time had passed. "Impossible," she said aloud. "I looked at it just now and it was only—" She realized she jumped back into the present in the last few minutes, so the minutes that went backwards during the start were suddenly equalized, so she jumped ahead around 20 minutes in time. She quickly picked up her package and started running. She stormed on the ship as if she had arrived at the last minute, even though there were still more than 20 minutes left until departure. During this time she checked her watch several times to make sure she is aware of time. Livius also kept doing that, she recalled, making her laugh, but her throat immediately tightened up. As the departure came closer, she began to regain her composure. Leaning on the railing, she looked at the harbor with a sad smile on her face, which she learned from Livius. On the left, a cruise ship ran in. People were standing on the shore waiting for the arrival. On the other side, Next to the pier were boats and sailboats all lined up, the crowd of people waiting for the long haul stretched far. On the other side, next to the pier, were boats and sailboats all lined up, the crowd of people waiting for the long haul stretched far. Everything looked beautiful and full of life in the early afternoon sunshine. Anna wondered who would wait for her at the watermill. Nobody, she thought. A little further away, a boy on the beach was playing with his dog. Anna was watching them because they seemed happy. Someone touched her shoulder gently. Anna turned around. Her chin dropped at the sight of the young man behind her. Lee? She stopped abruptly, not wanting to believe her eyes. "Excuse me, ma'am. A bandit in a hat came here about half an hour ago. Do you know him?" Anna was so chilled she didn't answer. "He said you were going to get up and asked me to hand over this letter." The bearded man handed her an envelope. He seemed uncertain, a little suspicious. "Do you know him?" he asked again. "Yes!" she nodded enthusiastically, taking the letter and thanking him for the help. She remembered the way Livius first addressed her, as he always knew how to get her to write the receipt over and over again, and how to do it kindly so she wouldn't hate him for it. She broke the wax seal with trembling hands, not caring how stupid she looked to those around her. It was clear at first glance that the writer was in a hurry to put their thoughts on paper, which is why they lacked cohesion. Dear Anna, we have been happily married for 6 years. I've lived in insecurity for these 6 years, but I don't mind it. As soon as I realized the secret of time slip, in which you helped a lot by the way, I headed back in the past. If I didn't, we might never have met. This was my first and only trip to the past. I have been to several different distances. In 7 months, I saw everything I was curious about. I admit I also looked at some memorable moments of our lives from an outside perspective. One day you might have seen me, but you weren't scared. I guess you read this letter. We will meet on the ship. I'll be leaning against the wall. You'll find me when you are looking for your cabin. If you're reading this, we've both experienced the second first meeting, although what was second for you was the first one for me, and vice versa. Don't tell me the things you don't want to, but when I ask a lot about the past, show me this letter. I'll be reassured. By that time I was already starting to research time travel. I will understand what happened. Don't worry about my wound. You'll patch me up at home. Love you so much. Have a nice trip. P.S. I'll cut my beard, don't worry. Livius.